Hi. Hi,
Hi.
everybody. We are live. Hi, Gabi. So, hi,
Hi, Vivi.
everybody. I'm Vivi from BEqualise. And hi, Gabi. And I'm very happy to be here with Gabi. She's my co founder in BEqualise. So, as you know, BEqualise, we are a startup, the first startup offering a first holistic application mobile app for a patient that suffer from dizziness. And I'm here with Gabi. She has been with us from the beginning, and she is a nutritionist and homeopath. And I'll leave now the words to her for introducing herself. But just before we move on, just so that you know, today is our first live, and the live that we are gonna go through today is gonna be a live about the relevance of diet and vestibular migraine. Gabi, would you like to say a few words just to introduce yourself?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm Gabi. I run a clinic and I have a holistic approach. So people come to me with a variety of different symptoms, also lots of vestibular related disease. And what I do is I look very broadly at the functioning of the metabolism and how the energy production is going, and based on nutritional interventions, any kind of supplemental use like orthomolecular supplementations. I try to help them and balance them. And yeah, that's basically how I work.
Thank you. So yeah, I've met Gabi a few years ago, and we decided to team up for BEqualise because she has this very different approach for where we are coming from. For everybody that don't know me, I have done my PhD and postdoc on vestibular disorders. I have a background in physiology, and now I'm back studying, doing medical schools, and yeah, and I'm very excited that we can translate what we learned into research, combine it with a different approach, such as Gabi approach, from an holistic perspective, to try to help and ease patients the symptoms of patients that suffer from dizziness. So today, the topic that we decided with Gabi, it's gonna be about the relevance of diet and vestibular migraine. So. I think before we move on, just for everybody, I will give a very short introduction on what is vestibular migraine. And then we can hear also from Gabi a very different perspective on how she manages or she advises the patients that she sees from a diet standpoint of view. So, as you know, vestibular migraine is not really a migraine per se. So vestibular migraine, it's a definition, and usually it refers to basically short episode of vertigo and dizziness that patients can have. They can be really, really short, up to few seconds throughout the day, or the longest can be a couple of minutes. The patient usually reports to have dizziness, to have also sensations of rocking. Sometimes they have a sensation of floating. They have sensation of swaying, and they have like an internal motion. Vestibular migraine, it's has a let's say falls into the migraine cluster, but you don't need to have migraine per se, which means that a lot of the time when we use these terms, a lot of patients they say, oh, but I don't have actually any headache. You can have vestibular migraine even if you don't have any headache. This is very clear. And usually the treatment that it's recommended, it implies medications, but as we know, medication is only taking care of one small component. And usually, in order to really have a drastic change and diminishing your symptoms, you need to look at it as 360 degrees approach. Taking this into just in mind, vestibular migraine is associated sometimes also with other vestibular disorders, meaning that you can have something else and then you also have vestibular migraine on top of it. For example, a lot of the patients, they also have a very high visual sensitivity to visual stimuli, so they get triggered by complex, large moving stimuli. They get triggered by head motions. They get triggered by so many different aspects. But one aspect that we want to focus on today, it's food. So just for Gabi, a question: what do you think a patient that come with migraine and vestibular migraine, especially? What do you think? Why do you think the diet is going to be important, and what shall they eat? And why would you advise them in this regards?
Okay, that's like many questions all in one. So let's break it down. So what I see in general when we're speaking, I see that people that are bursting with energy are not the ones that get sick. Okay, so always lying problem with energy. Tired, there's some kind of a going on or has been, which is putting a huge strain on the entire system. So back to your question, and your first question was like, can food play a role? So the way I view it is that there's many things that are contributing to the amount of have. The actual thing that influences and influence energy the most is our food intake. Our food is like our fuel. You know, think of a car. If there's no gas in there, you're not going anywhere. Our body, you know, and all this to function optimally. And when it comes to vestibular disease, there's multiple systems that are involved. We're talking about the nervous system. Hormones are usually, there's some kind of a dysregulation, gut issues. So the overall, you know, co-founding factor is how is the energy production. And since fuel is actually being converted into our energy in our cells, it is an amazing tool to look into and try to optimize when we're dealing with any kind of a vestibular issue, and of course, especially also vestibular migraine. Mm-hmm. So to answer the second question was what type of food should we be eating? Let's first try to understand the function of food, as I said, is to optimize our energy. So we have energy to do whatever it is that we want to do in a day, but also for our body to function. You know, we need energy to produce the hormones. We need energy to think. We need energy to regulate our emotions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the main thing that I would speak about is what's going on with the frequency of your food intake. Are you eating enough? Are you eating, you know, enough times in a day? And is the result that you have stable blood sugar? And I find this to be, before we get into any type of food, you know, any specific micronutrient that might be deficient, is there enough fuel coming into the system? I don't know, probably 9 out of 10 people don't eat enough. We're busy, we don't think of it, you know, consensus today that are interested in their health and do some research on, you know, minutes you get to, you need to be with eating, go low carb, whatever it is. Very often the information that has to wrong dietary choices or understand not, you know, what would be an optimal way that might not of really generating a good flow of energy. That would,
but
you know, food. Sorry, yeah.
Would it be, Gabi? I think we have a bit of a delay, but I can hear you well. Your connection, sometimes you're frozen, but I can hear you. Do you think now you're frozen, for example? Did we lost you? Did we lose we? Yeah. Okay. Hi, Gabi. Can you hear us?
I can.
You're back on track, yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
You were saying?
So what I wanted to say is like, yeah, I was saying, yeah, I agree. The only issue is that, don't you think this is driven by the the pandemic that we have with obesity and diabetes type 2 and metabolic disorders, that people get so scared of eating.
Absolutely.
And actually,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
this is actually because maybe they get brainwashed by the fear, oh, you're going to become obese, or maybe they
Of
became
course.
obese. But
Of course.
and just to mention
Yeah.
this, even obese or people that are overweight, they don't eat still enough in a lot of the
Yeah.
cases. Just to be clear.
Often people that have weight issues actually don't get enough energy, and it's never, I mean, seldom is it a matter of people being lazy and just not wanting to get up and not, you know, be active. So I think there's a big problem in understanding what is the right food. And I think there's a lot of misconception. I do think that a lot of people, or let's put it this way, plenty of people are health conscious and really want to do it right. But then when it comes to, you know, taking action, there's a lot of the times it's not going in the way to support, you know, the energy metabolism. And this is, you know, my number one intervention is to get that right.
Okay, and this is also what we're trying to do with BEqualise, right? To try to teach them
Absolutely.
methodology.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So why
Yeah.
diets? Going back to the main question, why do you think diets affects the symptoms of migraine? What is your understanding on how the food plays a role in actually triggering or aggravating the symptoms of vestibular migraine?
Okay, so let's put the whole energy thing aside for a second, because you know, there's a lot more to be said on that, but let's continue to dig into this topic. So when it comes to vestibular migraine, the general advice would be, you know, to eat a low histamine diet. Now, a lot of people have no idea what this is, histamine, but it's this compound that is produced by the cells in your body, also in your gut, but in all cells as a reaction. It's an immune reaction to something. So if you get stung by a bee, let's say, if you get stung by a bee here, it will get all red and swollen, and, you know, there's histamine being released. And this is, you know, the body's way to repair whatever is going on. Now, there is, unfortunately, a huge problem nowadays because our nutrition, you know, the industry and, you know, our food supply is not really geared and aimed at being healthy and supporting people in, you know, having a healthy digestion. And a lot of foods are full of additives and all kinds of things that are not optimizing our digestion, with the result that the digestion is impaired in one way or the other at one point. You know, as the moment the food gets into the body, you know, it goes through the stomach and the small intestines, the large intestines, et cetera. But when you see that there's problems with regards to digestion, and there might be some kind of a dysbiosis going on, meaning, you know, the good and the bad bacteria in the gut are not optimal, then any food or any wrong food can actually trigger symptoms, as in, you know, there could be a lot of fermentation going on. There could be something else going on, which is causing an inflammatory response coming from the gut that is triggering the release of different compounds, like, for instance, histamine. And histamine, depending on where it's being released, you know, has different types of reactions in the body. In the central nervous system, it has a reaction of similar maybe to like adrenaline, like, you know, turning you on, like making you nervous, or just any kind of a trigger that is disrupting the balance. So, you know, suddenly you can become, or suddenly you feel, you know, and then there's, of course, a relationship with your gut and your hormone balance, which, you know, this is a whole topic. I'm not sure we want to dive into it right now, but there's lots of foods that trigger this release. So the advice would be, when you start, optimize diet, choosing foods that are low in histamine or cause your body to release a minimal amount of histamine would be a very, very good place to start.
Okay. And and this is just to kind of give an idea of how everything is interconnected. And sometimes people think, okay, but if I have vestibular migraine, why do I need to implement strategies that look at my entire lifestyle? And with these regards, I want to mention a few things. So for now, it's advised, and there are many studies starting already from years and years ago, that they are actually suggesting they've done many multi-centered and randomized clinical trial to actually shows that the best strategies for intervention in migraine is based on lifestyle modification, which of course involves also looking at the diet. So look at anything that could actually try to prevent the subject, the people, in this case the patients, to have these triggers. And working on a preventive medicine, preventive kind of like trying not to get to the point that you get the triggers of migraine. And this is where I think diet can play a massive role, because it's not just about, okay, you are taking the medications and you're just going to try to deal with your life like that, but what you can actually do so that you're not going to re-trigger this system. Because if you are predisposed to migraine, let's be clear, and unfortunately, this is a disorder that does affect more women than men. There are so many components. One is genetic, hormonal, one may be the food, maybe the stress, maybe it's really multifactorial as a disorders. And that's why diet, even if it looks like quite basics to be like, okay, just follow a diet regime, and as well as a lifestyle, reducing the screen time, reducing stress, they actually are the key tools to stop having the triggers and maybe slowly get off the prophylaxis medication that you are usually given. Because let's be clear, usually these type of disorders are treated with, the golden standard is to treat them with medication and to treat them with lifestyle modification. But this is where it plays a role to try to understand. This was the whole purpose of this of what we wanted to do today with this podcast, is to give you more information to you at home patients, to know more about what you can, what you should, and what is good for you. So thanks, Gabi, for
And I would like to
this.
add something to that. We at BEqualise really, really care about empowering you yourself as a patient to understand and to be able to listen to the signals from your body and start to get more and more in touch with what is it that I need, what's going on, so you're able to actually help yourself heal and stay healthy.
Yeah, 100%.
So you don't feel so dependent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And also to try to give as much knowledge, because a lot of the people, and we know this, I know this since years, whenever people are given diet, first of all, nobody likes to follow a diet because you feel restricted. So what we're trying to do here is actually to make you aware of why certain food could become a trigger and what could be a balanced diet and why you need the energy that Gabi was mentioning before. So that once you have more knowledge, you will feel more empowered. Okay, I have...
Yeah, and another thing is, sorry, I want to say one more thing, I'm sorry. But the right diet shouldn't be like a pain. It shouldn't be about restricting yourself and feeling bad and feeling sorry for you. You should be eating when you feel hunger. You should be eating foods that are going to make you happy. We don't believe in restriction and torture diets because they don't work.
That doesn't work.
Sorry.
I agree. 100%, Gabi, we're on the same page, 100%. Yes. They don't work, and then patients get frustrated, they don't want to do it, and especially if there is no understanding behind, it becomes very complicated. Okay, moving a bit, like, so we talked a little bit about the science as well, so we know that the multidisciplinary approach is really what works for vestibular migraine. And if you are currently taking medication that can range from topiramate or SSRI or, I don't know, beta block, whatever medication you're given right now for the prophylaxis or for the treatment, remember that this is a small part. The rest is down to your hands and what you can do in terms of changing your sleeping pattern, your diet, your lifestyle, and everything else is in your hands. And for example, how much water you drink. Dehydration is another big trigger that you should be aware of. So this is kind of why it's well known and why you should really think about the food. Now, going back to the food, one of the things I want to discuss with you, Gabi, because I know that this is something that you explain very well always. A lot of the people, they say, oh, this is a bad food, this is bad food, or this is a very good food. And food is food. We give the connotation of what is good, what is bad. So what do you actually think it's going on with this kind of regarding good or bad food? And what actually would you suggest to having a balanced diet for dizzy patients, especially patients with vestibular migraine?
Mm-hmm. So the majority of my patients are women, and also BEqualise is for women. So most women have in the back of their head, oh my God, I have to be careful with eating too many carbs because they're going to make me fat. And they have this thing that carbs, sugar is bad. We couldn't be farther from the truth. The main thing we need to eat, the main thing that our cells need in order to convert energy is sugar, is glucose, is carbs. Now, there's a lot to be said about which carbs, but there is no such thing as carbs being bad food. On the contrary, I think that most people don't eat enough carbs. So that's, something that I come across a lot when it comes to,
And
a false
what about
concept.
And what about when they say, yeah, but I was told that if I eat too many carbs, I can get fat, or what is
Yeah.
your answer usually?
Well, that's complicated because it's wrong. It's based on wrong conclusions. Yeah, what can I say? It's just wrong. And I, really like to take the time to dig into that and explain and point out, what's going on. And I do, of course, I use lab work to demonstrate what I'm trying to say. But it's just simply wrong. And it's quite dangerous if there's health, practitioners out there that are telling women to stay away from carbs. This to me just is not something that
I
is.
guess, no, I mean, I agree. There is a lot of fear, and unfortunately, there is a lot of misconception, and a lot of people that love this ketogenic diet, which is, we know, very dangerous. Actually, you should never start a ketogenic diet without consulting a neurologist, and it can be really bad. But this is being also driven by the fitness industry, that they kind of take certain food, and this is I couldn't agree more to see this. But one thing to say is that when you have migraine, right? So balanced diet means that you should not avoid carbs. You should have carbs in the right quantities, in the right source of carbs, but you should have it. And what else do you think would be kind of food, if you have to just explain what will entail to eat in a balanced way, and what could be a few tips, if you have them, of things that you think could trigger or could just make them having a better health gut and therefore less symptoms?
Okay, so first of all, I think that everyone should be eating at least 3 balanced meals a day, and many people would need a snack in between the meals to keep the blood sugar stable. At least I do. And I also know people that, if they make sure their meals are balanced, then that's okay too. Now, what is balanced? Balance means that you're having at least 25%, of a meal is going to be a protein. because, our cells need building blocks, to rebuild tissue, to rebuild. So we need to have good sources of protein. I believe that you cannot get around having animal protein, because the animal protein, are all-rounded proteins that have all the essential amino acids in it. And when you try to get, your protein from, vegetable or plant sources, it's going to be incomplete. So that's a problem. So if we're saying that 25% of, our meal is going to be a protein, then 50% at least should be carbs. And carbs will be, fruit juice, dried fruit, some healthy starches, and some vegetables, but definitely not piles of green leafy raw vegetables, because, this is also very difficult to digest and absorb. So we want to make sure that in every meal we're getting the right amount of glucose, of sugars. So this is important. And with this meal, the way you prepare it, or, like if you're cooking something, using the right oils is essential. We need a certain amount of oil, small amount, but we need oil, to aid digestion, but also to keep our satiety, long. People that go on a very low fat diet or don't eat any fat, have extreme fluctuations in their blood sugar too, because, glucose digests much faster than fat. So we want to have a balanced combination of the three macronutrients in order for us to sustain for a couple hours without eating until our next meal.
Do you believe that, in the internet, again, a lot of the patients, when they come to us, they are like, yeah, I've read this, I've seen this. And a lot of the people, they suggest this extreme kind of like a so-called migraine diet, which, they just say you should avoid many things that actually can trigger. What is your perspective on that?
Avoiding foods that, can contribute
trigger
to migraine. Yeah. So we're talking about the histamine foods, right? Is that what you're referring
like
to?
chocolate or red wine, cheese, a certain type of food that have been proven to, in certain people, trigger migraine.
Yeah. So absolutely, because, the status of our health, it really, really is so important. How the system, and a lot of people do not start in an optimal way. So when there is some kind of a dysbiosis going on, and these foods you just mentioned, like the cheese and the chocolate and all this stuff, can really trigger this really, which can have, a negative effect and trigger an episode. Avoiding foods, especially in the beginning, while we're regulating, while we're, improving the energy metabolism, while we're improving the gut function and digestion, it's definitely a very good idea to avoid these foods.
Okay, and do you think, because one of the things I don't like personally about too strict diets is, as we mentioned before, is that people find it very difficult to continue. Do you think that, maybe you've seen that when they take away some food with time, it doesn't mean that they will never eat it again. This is one of the other things I'd like to say to patients. You might eat it again, but not now. That you can actually put it back into your life after
I think when we speak about restricting foods, very, very often when you restrict foods, you're restricting carbs. And not having enough carbs, glucose, causes depression. Our brain, if you want, it's absolutely true. We've all, experienced what it's like not eating enough, this feeling of hunger. You can look at kids, the way they behave when they're hungry. They become complete maniacs. We become not at our best state when we are not feeding our brain. Half of the lights turn off. There is no good conversion of all, the production of neurotransmitters. There's no balance anymore. So
Yeah.
feeling restricted often has to do with depriving ourselves of sugar. And when you make sure that you're really getting enough, it's actually not so difficult. And by the way, you asked me earlier, which I didn't answer yet because it's such a broad topic. I don't want to jump too much, but there are also some foods in our, food industry which are really bad, which we should avoid. And it is difficult. But in our way, in our method, the replacing, the bad foods with the good foods and making sure you're getting enough sugar is going to make you happy and not feel deprived. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And with these regards, I'd like to mention that we're not trying to, just as a disclaimer, we're not trying to push people to neither gain weight or, this is not what it's going to happen, because
on the
this is
contrary, if you're overweight, you might want to lose a couple of kilos. We definitely support that. Yeah.
On the contrary, you might actually start to have your metabolic function in order. Your metabolism will pick up. You will start moving more, be more energetic, and lose weight. Okay,
that
great.
too. But what I also hear a lot is that when people start eating to support their metabolism, they say, "Oh, by the way, I didn't have PMS this month," or "Oh, by the way, I'm sleeping so much better," or "Oh, by the way, the pain in my joints is gone." So it affects the entire system.
100%. Yeah. I could not agree more. Okay, one more thing, Stan. What do you think we could tell, and what would be a good suggestion? So just to make a quick recap for the patients that are listening at home, what could be the tips that we could have for patients about suffering from vestibular migraine, tips that they can implement today, and what they can actually find in the program that we developed in BEqualise?
Okay, so let's go through it again. Eat at least 3 meals a day and make sure that you're having a nice size of fruit, whether it's a fresh juice, some dried fruit, or a piece of fruit, or, a portion of fruit with every meal. Make sure that you're avoiding the histamine triggering foods, like start off with alcohol, beer, wine, canned food, leftover foods. So as practical as it is, don't eat leftover foods. Like smoked foods.
This is something people don't really know, that when you leave your food out or in the fridge, there is something happening to food. So this is also
something is happening. There's like this bacteria growing on it, and these are all, causing this higher release of histamine, inflammation in the gut. So cook fresh food and eat it, and if there's leftover, give it to your kids or someone else, but don't eat it yourself. So chocolate, coffee could be a trigger, although I'm a big fan of coffee and chocolate. But in the case of vestibular migraine, I would say for the beginning phase, kind of diminish using that. And any kind of a fermented food. So, could be yogurt or sauerkraut, pickles. But again, it's very personal. So some people react to certain foods that have high histamine, and other foods they're fine with. So it's really about kind of experimenting and seeing how it works. And on top of it, it's also, you can compare it to a bucket. You can have here and there, you'd be able to handle certain foods. But if you just have too much and you're also tired and you didn't sleep well and you're highly stressed, your whole system can handle less than, the day before when you were in a good state.
And this is what I was
becoming mindful. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is what I was mentioning before, that even if you have to remove certain foods for the beginning, doesn't mean that you will never eat chocolate ever again in your life, because this will be really sad. You might be able to
chocolate has Chocolate has a lot of magnesium and it has
Of course.
amazing healthy fats. So I consider chocolate a superfood, and by no means should it be eliminated from a diet. But
Yeah.
again, as we said in the beginning stage, it might be handy to kind of omit it.
Mm-hmm. To help. So basically, apart from what Gabi said, one of the key things is to identify the trigger. And this is where I'd like to say to all the patients that are going to see this, if they have vestibular migraine, and that you can use our app to identify the trigger, because in our app we have created a new trigger monitoring. So we ask you, for example, if you have been having coffee, from 0 to 10, how much does that trigger you? Maybe that at the beginning you will see that it triggered you a lot, so you remove it, and then maybe down the line, after you follow the rehab kind of program for a while, you will be able to handle it much better. So make sure that if you want to have a better understanding of your trigger, you use this system as well, because you will get like a graph, and you will get like a kind of like showing you day by day how you're progressing, and what was maybe triggering you at the beginning will not triggering you again at the end. So this is important. Okay, so just to and last disclaimer about the BEqualise app, we just released the new version. So if you had the old version, please delete it, reinstall the new version. We are just gonna start now validating this very new minimum valuable product, let's say MVP. So please just download it again and try it out and give us feedback. Okay, I think, Gabi, anything on your hand? In my end, what I liked as a message of today, which was great to talk to you as an expert on this, is that food is medicine, food is energy, food is needed, and that you need to listen to your body, but at the same time, not live in this brainwashed mode that we all are as women, that we need to be careful, and oh my god, if we eat too much, because living a life of restrictions creates only more problem. And
And
so
it
thanks.
means you're living, it also means you're living in a state of low battery mode,
Yeah, 100%.
which is not a state you want to be in. It's not a quality of life that is supporting a healing process of, so it's a different way of thinking. And I think that's our main message, you can
100%.
recharge. Yeah.
Yeah, that you should be able to have at least the right amount of nutrients, and not living in this constant conflict, oh my god, I'm gonna gain weight, because it's not a very pleasant place to be. Now I think we have a couple of questions from patients, and let's see, I'm gonna get them and I'm gonna read them to you. Okay, why is coffee triggering my headache? Jane from the US. Coffee has caffeine. Caffeine triggers histamine, as we mentioned before. But Gabi, if you want to say a few more words about this.
No, what you said is true. Caffeine can trigger. It can, trigger adrenaline, and adrenaline, is a stimulant, so that could be a trigger. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What else? We have a few more. Let's see. Hi, I'm 45 years old and I get dizzy and vestibular migraine close to my menstrual cycle. Why? Thank you, Anne from the Netherlands. Okay, so as we mentioned before, vestibular migraine behaves as migraine, which means that they are subjected to hormones. Why? Because hormones, they regulate neurotransmitters as well. So the fluctuation that we go through during the menstrual cycle, as you know, just before the menstrual cycle, we have something that we call estrogen withdrawal, which means that your estrogens are becoming lower and lower, and your progesterone goes a little bit up, and then you get your menses. So when you have low estrogens, that is a trigger for migraine. This is why a lot of the patients, they have acute migraine just before their menstrual cycle, and then already after they start the menses, already on the second, third day, the migraine usually is gone. This is also why, again, it's very, very important that you are aware of your menses, you're aware of your regularity, you are aware of your of your ovulation, and you kind of monitor and track how your hormones are influencing your dizziness. And migraine, it might be one of the few pathology that actually is relieved when you go to menopause, because when you go to menopause, everything shuts down. So if you had a long history of migraine, for example, during your teenagers, and then when you were just in your reproductive years, the moment you hit menopause, a lot of the migraine is it's gone, it's subsidized. And this is actually the one good thing about menopause, if we want to say. No, I mean, not that it's too bad, but it really shows that the fluctuation of hormones is what really triggers the migraine per se. And this is why, looking at everything, you should also consider how to balance and have your hormones in check, so that you can perhaps avoid to have this massive trigger. Anything else, Gabi, that you want to add on your side?
Yeah, well, also estrogen and histamine have a close relationship. They actually stimulate each other. So if you have high histamine constantly, because of, let's say, a microbiome that isn't optimal, your body is going to be producing more estrogen, and the more estrogen is going to be producing more histamine. So it's all tied together. And that's why, really improving your diet and eating, to really support your metabolism will kind of deal with everything at the same time. Yeah.
Okay, great. Let me check. I think, yeah, we have I think maybe we have one more. Let me see. Yeah. Hi, I'm Julie from France, a 35 years old vestibular migraine patient. I've been diagnosed with it 4 months ago. What supplement shall I take and why? Okay, this is for you, Gabi, since you are the expert
Yeah.
here on the
Okay,
supplements.
so that's not a lot of information I know about her, but I would say that the first thing that comes to mind is she probably is magnesium deficient. It's number one. And I also think that there might be a deficiency in certain B vitamins, B12, B9, methylfolate, B3. So I would look into those two.
Okay.
Yeah.
And okay. Yeah, I mean, supplements, this is one of maybe another thing just you can clarify. A lot of the patient, they think, oh my God, I don't want to take supplement. I take too many things. Or I heard this a lot. People are like, I don't want to take it because I take a lot of things. They think of supplement as medication. This is not the case.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe just to explain, Gabi, what do you think?
Well, I actually, I'm sorry to say, but I actually like to think of supplements as medication, but natural, non-toxic. I would rather take a supplement that is based on natural ingredients that I know is supporting my system than take some synthetic, often toxic medication that is for sure impacting the rest of your system.
Yeah, and having
So I
side
don't believe in just taking 20 supplements and that's it. Everything is good. You don't if you're healthy, you don't need a lot of extra, but it is very interesting or valuable, to take for a couple months something if you are deficient in order for your system to rebalance until such time that you don't need it anymore. And you got your nutrition and your diet completely, optimized, then you can stop it. But I don't know. It all depends on how far you're willing to go for your health, how much it means to you, the quality of your life. If you're going through life in a low battery mode, not being able to take part in things because you don't feel good, then I hope, you can feel motivated to invest in yourself a certain period of time. And that might mean taking also certain, supplements that would support this whole process. That is
100%.
necessary. Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean you have to do it for the rest of your life, but
Oh no,
there are
absolutely not. Yeah.
exactly that there are periods that you need. But a lot of the people, there is a bit of a misconception thinking, okay, I take a supplement and it's gonna impact me. Or, I mean, especially, in this part of the world where I live, where you are very far from fresh food and fresh things. If you live in a very in a city that doesn't have the luxury of going to just a
Farm.
fresh market, a
Hmm.
farm, then you do need
Hmm.
some supplements because
Yeah.
our food system does not help in this case.
Yeah,
So
it's very unfortunate if you're, tied down to not fresh food, and absolutely you're going to need more because you're going to be exposed to toxins. You're going to need a lot more for your body to function optimally. So
yeah,
yeah.
I agree. And this is just to remind ourselves of our common vision, that it's looking at the person holistically, so internally as multi-system as well as
Hmm.
externally. The environments where you live does affect you. So yeah, I'm very happy, Gabi. Thanks for spending this time with us. And
Sure.
so Gabi,
Fun.
yeah, Gabi she has contributed massively to the development of the nutritional side, and there's gonna be more coming out of BEqualise. And she is a co-founder and one of the experts on the team. So also, if you want to reach down to her individually, you can find her on our application. So just download it and get in touch. And yeah, it's really a pleasure, and I'm really excited for what we're building.
So am I.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
Gabi. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Bye.